propagating, I guess. So might be live.
Whoa, looks like you are live.
Yeah.
Hello, welcome everyone. Woohoo! We are back. We are back. We are back. Did anybody miss us? Comment and let us know if you missed us. Hopefully somebody missed us. I am Tara, the author of the Dining on a Dime cookbook, where you can eat better, spend less. Also, livingonadime.com, where we have over 1,500 recipes and tips to help you save money on your grocery bill and get out of debt starting today. How was that?
That was great.
Is that great?
Yep.
Maybe we should keep that for all of our ads from now on.
Yes.
I can sound that perky all the time.
Yes.
Today, we're making, from Dining on a Dime cookbook, my great-grandma's peach cobbler / crisp. Yes, we will get into that in just a moment, but this recipe, you can see right there is the original recipe that she clipped out of the newspaper from the 1950's. Grandma Bessie was her name right there. You can see on her apple crisp, she changed it from brown sugar to white sugar. She also made it 7 to 8 tablespoons of butter instead of 6. So in our recipe, we went with Grandma's suggestion on the butter, but we like brown sugar. I like brown sugar, so I kept the brown sugar. Yes, that's how we did some of these recipes. So this recipe is from the 50s. It has been passed down to my mom, my grandma, and me. And this is a basic recipe that everybody should have. Now, let's talk about the difference between crisps and cobblers, because I know we're going to get a lot of comments about that. So, the first thing, there is a difference between a crisp and a cobbler. Now, for this video, we named it Peach Cobbler instead of Peach Crisp, only because people search Peach Cobbler more than they search Peach Crisp. Now, they are kind of interchangeable, but they are two different things. Peach Crisp is more crispy on top, meaning it has more sugar and more butter and more oatmeal, okay? So it's more of a crispy crust, whereas cobbler is more of a cakey crust, okay? So I know we're gonna get some comments, but this recipe, if you love cobbler, is super, super delicious. I am using them interchangeably. Don't worry about yelling at me. Don't waste your time, Heidi. I'll just delete the comments. So I'm afraid I may just set the world on fire saying that this is a cobbler when it's a crisp. But anyway, in the book, it is listed as Peach Crisp, and you can get the link in the description below. No chatting, Michael. You're supposed to be doing
No, the problem is it says live from Norway. Why we don't do Airbnb anymore is the title.
Oops. Oh,
sorry,
no.
guys. I haven't done this for a long time. So,
so Mike's going to put the link to the
what?
Peach Cobbler / crisp recipe.
okay.
That is on our website. Now, peaches are on sale this week for 97 cents a pound. These are Colorado peaches, the best peaches in the whole wide world. Sorry, Georgia, but Colorado has the most wonderfulest peaches in the whole wide world, I'm sure. I'm a peach fan. My new favorite fruit after our trip is blackcurrant, but peaches and blueberries are at the top for me. So I just got 20 pounds of peaches at the grocery store for 37 cents. Go on Instagram, guys. I'm putting my deals on Instagram. And so if you want to see some good deals that we got, go check us out at Instagram. It's just Living on a Dime. That's us. And you'll see my deals. But I got 37 cents a pound for Colorado beautiful peaches. He they were all bruised. So they were really, really bruised, similar to this one. But I wanted to make some homemade peach jam, which, if you guys are wondering, I used the recipe for strawberry freezer jam on page, whoops, where'd it go? Oh dear, we didn't get that indexed. Oh no, we did. I can't spell. What else is new? Okay, strawberry freezer jam is on page 424. I just used that recipe and I used peaches instead, okay? So, what happened was I went to the store to get some lovely, luscious peaches. They were out. The manager was there and I said, are you guys going to be getting any more peaches? Do you have any more in the back? These are all bruised. You can see how bruised that was. And he said, I've got another truck coming tonight. Yeah, I don't know what I'm going to do with all these peaches. I guess I'll have to mark them down. And I said, well, if you mark them down low enough, I'll take them all. Because there was only like a half a box left. And he said, oh, okay, how about 49 cents a pound? So I went up to check out, and the checker could not figure out how to ring it up. And she kept getting frustrated. The manager just said, just figure out whatever you want to do. So she ended up doing buy one bag, get one free. Well, of course, one bag was heavier than the other. And so I ended up paying 37 cents a pound for them. So that's how I got that good deal. You can find that on Instagram once again. Now, to make this recipe, I am making a small batch, but you can make it so that it is peeled peaches or not peeled peaches. Now, I'm a lazy cook. I like to get in and out of the kitchen in 15 minutes or less for all of my recipes. So I do not remove the skin, but I'm going to show you how to remove the skin because it's super simple. I just don't. So what you do is you take your boiling water, okay? So I got my boiling water here, and I'm just dropping my peaches.
Sorry guys, I can't zoom in. It's not letting me do it, so.
Issues?
Yeah,
Okay.
I may have to.
So I just have my peaches dumped in there in boiling water, and I'm gonna let them boil for about 30 seconds to a minute, okay? So since I've been yakking for just a little bit here, I'm gonna go ahead and put my timer for 30 seconds. That'll be about 45 or so. Now, what you wanna do is you want to boil them just enough to get the skin really hot, and then we're gonna immerse them into ice water, okay? And we're going to do it really quickly, and what happens is it separates the skin from the peaches, okay?
Lots of people saying they missed us.
They missed us! We were
Aw,
missed.
thank you.
Yay. Okay, so now we've got the skin boiling here. All right, and I have preheated my oven, just so you know, okay? All right, so here are the peaches, very lovely. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take and put them in ice water, just like this. This is called blanching, but it takes the skin off too. All right, now get this out of the way. Blanching is where you just dip it in hot water, boiling water, real quick, and it helps when you freeze. I have no idea what it helps with freezing. I just know you're supposed to do it. So somebody in the comments, let me know what blanching helps with. Since I'm not a canner and I am not a traditional freezer, I just dump my stuff in the bag and move on with life. I don't waste time with that kind of stuff like blanching. But if you do, you feel free to do it and let me know why you do it. Because I honestly don't notice any difference in my stuff. Okay, so now you'll see in the ice water how the peels just strip right off. Just super, super easy. Get the little stem, get them going here. Isn't that beautiful? Right there, isn't that beautiful? Okay, so let me stick this. I was just gonna show you, I pre-spray my pan. Okay, got that greased. I'm just gonna set these in here until I cut them up. All right, now let me show you on the bruised one here. You don't really need to worry about bruises. So see how this one is bruised here? All right, we ignore the bruises pretty much, unless it is moldy. So see how that's bruised, but it's not moldy? See how it's bruised but not moldy? I just go ahead and leave it like it is. Now this one is bruised a little bit worse. So let's peel this one off and let's see how bad it is.
Can you hold it closer to the camera?
Yes, I can.
I can't zoom right now for some reason.
Okay. So this one is a little bit more bruised. So can you see that? Now here's a great big bruised spot. Now this big bruised spot like that.
Yeah.
This big bruised spot, I'm going to go ahead and cut off because that is just getting to the point of molding, okay? But little bruises like this, I just leave, okay? All right, so let's get the last one peeled here. Super, super easy. Doesn't take hardly any time at all. Oops, this one I probably should have left in the hot water just a second more. It's a little bit harder to peel. And if you find that they're hard to peel and it's not coming off very easy, just throw them back in your boiling water for like 30 more seconds and your peel will come off. It's not a big deal. Or you can take your knife and just cut it off like I'm doing just because I don't want to throw it back in there. Okay, there we go. Okay, got that. Now, this recipe once again is in our Dining on a Dime cookbook. Mike will put a link for you. It is back ordered until September. The books were supposed to arrive today. And of course our wonderful shipper that we can't stand has not got them to us yet. So that is why they are back ordered until September because, yeah.
The printer says the shipper will call us ahead of time, and usually we find out because they knock on the door and say we're here.
Yeah. So they may knock on the door, they may not. It was supposed to arrive Friday. They did not arrive Friday. So, okay, that last one could have been a little bit more ripe than it was. Now I'm just cutting this up. What I'm doing is I'm just scoring it against the pit.
Stormy, I do see you.
Okay. Just like this.
She says she bought peaches to make this.
Ooh, yay, thanks. Yeah, this recipe I love. I'm a peach kind of girl. Wow, these peaches were not as ripe as they felt. I probably would have used peaches slightly riper. But that's okay. Okay. There we go. Like I said, I made peach jam on Saturday, and it's nice and in the freezer. There's a reason why I only do it 10 years, because I hate making that kind of stuff. I burned myself twice. I scorched it on the bottom of the pan. Yeah. So that's all right. That's why I just freeze whole. Usually what I do is I will just freeze whole fruit and then make it up as I need it, because I just hate making big batches like that. But that's okay. All right. To each his own. Yes.
Oh, if you're on Facebook and you still see the Norway title, you can, if you refresh, it'll come back. I fixed it.
So I have to tell you, that house in the last video that we did in Norway, talking about the bad Airbnbs and how we hate Airbnb now and are never going to use them again. In that video, the next morning we woke up, and that house wasn't on Airbnb. Actually, it was a different. But it was funny. We woke up, and Dave said, "Mom, you got to come hear this," and it was dead silent. And I mean dead silent. It was
Norway
so
is
beautiful.
heaven.
It was absolutely beautiful. Loved it. Okay, so here's my brown sugar, and then my oatmeal, my flour, And my cinnamon. Of course, you guys know me. I don't really measure my spices. I just go for it. Okay. And then butter. I'm using margarine for this. I use margarine a lot of times for baking because it's cheaper, and most of the time you can't really tell the difference in the taste. And so I am using margarine for this, and I just go in and just take my hand and just, oops, oh dear, got a little happy there. All right. And I just get it all mixed in with my butter. Just take my fingers and go all in there, get it all nice and crumbly. My butter got a little soft. It's kind of warm in here. I've had the oven on. Okay, so then you just take and, oh, this is so good. I love it. Man, I wish I should have made, I didn't have any gluten-free flour. I would have made it gluten-free for me. But that's okay. My friend Jamie is having a rough one, so this will probably go to her house. Okay. And yes, for all of you germaphobes, I washed my hands thoroughly. Okay.
A lot of people are saying they missed us, but Luann said my hubby even said he missed you guys.
Oh, wow.
Yay.
Man. My husbands are missing us, huh?
I don't think Turid missed us, though.
Turid cannot say she missed us. Turid got enough of us, I think, to last her a lifetime. She's probably sick of us. Okay, so there it is. Then you pour your water over top, just like so. Then you put it in your oven, right here. And there you go. Voila. Okay, Dave. All right. And that is how you make a peach crisp. Now, I'm gonna set, oops, I got a big old mess here. All right, there we go. Once again, $3.75, Dining on a Dime cookbook, peach crisp. And how long do we need to cook this? 45 minutes. She knows. Okay, so that is how you make peach crisp, guys.
Woohoo!
Dining on a Dime cookbook. We got another testimonial today. I'm gonna start reading. We're gonna start printing off the testimonials and reading them.
Yay.
Another gal emailed me today saying how we have completely changed their lives and given them $500 to $1,000 a month.
All right.
For them to pay off their debt just by watching us.
Yes.
That is a good deal. Now,
so actually, you know, one thing we really like to know we make a difference in your life, and so we're especially interested in really doing things that help everybody who wants to improve. Yeah.
Did you shave this morning?
Yes.
You're looking a little rustic, honey.
It was all that throwing everything together at the last minute.
Okay, so we're going to talk about our trip just a little bit for today. First of all, we said that we have changes coming. We were not able to get our changes done in time for today's show. So we are shooting for next week or even possibly the week after Labor Day before we have our changes.
Denise says, love your English apron. Oh, yes.
This is an official British apron from Messam.
You have to know where
England.
Massam is to recognize that.
The cutest little town in England that we love. Our viewer Crystal so kindly let us use her home and stay in her home. She has two houses. She has one that's empty, and then we stayed, Mike and I and Jack stayed with her, and then the other stayed in her house that is empty. And we had a blast in Messam. If you guys see the video, it was after that we stopped videotaping on our trip. Now, back to our changes.
It was just making it too difficult.
Yeah, back to our changes. We have changes coming pretty soon, and this is a clue.
Let's see. Ooh. That
is a very big clue.
This is a clue, okay?
I doubt anyone's.
We're not announcing it until we get it done, but
right,
anyway.
So we have a few questions about the food stuff, I think.
Okay.
Well, what I already said, Stormy said she bought peaches for that. Amparo, I hope I said that right. Love all your tips. It's changing my finances for the best. Yay.
Oh.
Life of a Wife said, since you guys left, I made coleslaw, hamburger casserole, and pierogi casserole. I love your recipes. All delicious.
We are having coleslaw with barbecue ribs tonight.
And People was asking, and I was thinking the same thing. What's the name of the dessert where you take a whole peach or whole apple or whatever and put it in a ramekin and it comes out as a crisp with whipped cream? What is that?
A dumpling.
Is it? Okay.
Dumpling, yeah. I think that's what you're meaning.
Cindy wanted to know, do we have any recipes for grapes besides jam and juice?
No, but we do freeze them. So if I find a super, super good deal, grapes are really tasty frozen. So you can throw them in, wash them, throw them in the freezer, and then you can eat them like popsicles.
Yes, Ruth, Tara and I have had Fredericksburg peaches, and they're pretty awesome.
Colorado peaches are better.
Tara's got a thing for Colorado, though.
I was born in Colorado, so I have to say that.
That's pretty much it. There were some people saying that the blanching eliminates some of the bacteria, which I guess...
Oh, well, there you go. I never knew that.
For long-term storage, it probably is more significant than something you're cooking today.
Yeah. See, I don't blanch because what I do is I take my fruits and vegetables and I put them straight away into a freezer bag, and then I throw it straight in the freezer, and then after it's in the freezer, I cook it. So that's why I don't blanch. So
see, Denise knows me. She says, "Have you started planning your vacation for next year yet?"
Okay, so we're going to talk about our trip, and we'll mention our trip from other times, but this is going to probably be it on the information for our trip. So if you guys want information about our trip or anything, questions about anything, please post it in caps so that Mike can find your questions easier, and we will try to answer your specific questions. But our trip was
a mixed bag.
A mixed bag. So I will straight up say, everyone kept saying, how are you doing this trip? How are you doing this trip? You have chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia. How are you doing this trip? Okay. This trip was a huge mistake for me.
Ooh. Rip.
Huge. To the point that 3 different times in the trip, I was looking for flights home. I had it. I was done. We did
Mom
great.
Wasn't having...
She was really sick a lot of the time.
We did great until Massam. We did the first 2 weeks. As soon as we left Massam, I pretty much melted down after Massam. The stress of the trip was just way too much for me. So, if you have chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia and you're looking at me saying, how does she do it? How does she do it? I did not do it, okay? It was way too much for me. I couldn't stay on my diet. Well, I could, but it was super hard trying to figure out what to eat. I wasn't taking my supplements like I should have been. I stopped doing all my exercises that I should have been doing. It was London was extremely stressful. I don't know how anybody, no offense, Darren, we love you. I don't know how anyone lives in London. That place is horrible.
It's Mom and Dad's opinion.
So
I found it great.
Just our 2 cents.
I
Dave
could
loved
live
it.
in
Dave
London.
loved it. But for me, it was just way too stressful. Now, Mike and the kids, they had a ton of fun. They really loved it in between Mom's meltdowns.
We kind of had, for me, it was kind of like daily life. You feel great sometimes, not so great other times, and it was kind of up and down, but there was a lot of up, some down, because there was one night where I was actually a little frustrated with something, and I got up and I was thinking, I should just look to see if we send some people home. And Tara came down and she said, I was just thinking I should look up flights. But I would say for me, I enjoyed a lot of it. I think there was a part where we were trying to really do videos of the trip, and I think I wasn't really enjoying it so much then because I was really spending a lot of time doing that.
And then we found out the videos, all the people watching the videos were in the UK. Well, that's not doing our business any good. We love you guys in the UK, and we have...
But they're not people that are
great love for you,
living on
but
time mostly.
Yeah, but they're not people that are going to help our business. So for us to spend 5 to 8 hours a day editing videos for everywhere we went or for every day was just not worth it. So we stopped all videos. That's why after Massam, I was like, forget it. This is not worth it. We're not wasting another minute doing this. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much did we miss you? Oh, Jennifer, I missed you 155%.
That's higher than I said.
And so, yeah, so anyway, so let's get the whole CFS fibromyalgia thing out. Wouldn't do it again. I'm to the point now where I just don't even want to go anywhere. Might go to Mississippi to visit our friend Alderman's Farms, but it was pretty stressful. Now, what was our favorite place to visit? I would say Yorkshire, Massam, England, and Norway were our top 2 for me.
So what we haven't announced, but some people like Karen already know about, is there's a part where I think Tara and the boys were kind of thinking we just want to hang out at the place, and Ellie and I ended up making a side trip to Paris.
Yeah.
Which I would say, I think Ellie and I both agreed that that was our most favorite part.
Yeah. Well, that's because you guys were off by yourself and you weren't dealing with Airbnbs. You were
that.
dealing with hotels.
There is that.
And while they were there, that was when the boys and I were staying at the nasty Airbnb.
But
and I was having
actually,
to boil water to sterilize stuff, so.
Yeah, we did learn Airbnb is not our thing.
Yeah.
There were a few that were really amazing.
Next vacation.
A lot that weren't. And there were just a lot of little things that made them less fun on certain ones. Particularly when we realized that some of them, the price was the same as a hotel. So there was one particular day in Scotland that was really amazing too for me. But really love Norway, really love North Yorkshire, still have a heart for Ireland. Scotland, we unfortunately didn't, I don't think we really experienced Scotland as much as we had hoped, because there were 3 days of clear and 3 days of really rainy thing with midges biting midges. Those of you who saw us live, trying to go live with the midges biting us. And Ellie and I got chased by a bull.
Oh, tell them the bull
field.
story. Oh my goodness, we almost lost Mike and Ellie.
So we were all down, well, we had gone down to the loch, which is this really big lake with mountains and everything. It's beautiful.
Do you want me to show a picture?
Yeah, sure. And
here, hang on.
the lady that owned the farm where we stayed.
This is the loch that where he's talking about, yeah?
Yeah, the lady that owned the farm where we stayed said, there's a field down there, you can go past it, and I own this waterfront on the loch, and you can go down there to my pier, and she said, if you see any cows, just kind of give them a wide berth, and they won't bother you, and everything else. We're like, okay. So we had gone down there a couple times, and one time, all 5 of us were down there, and I had the idea I'd kind of like to walk around the loch a little along the coastline, and Tara and Dave and Jack were kind of like, we want to go back to the house. So Ellie stayed with me, and we kind of were making our way around the loch. And all of a sudden, there were these trees along the edge and some hills and fields. And all of a sudden, we heard, look back, and this bull came out of the woods and kind of looked at us, and then kind of started making its way along the rocks in our direction. And it was like a quarter of a mile away. So we weren't too worried. We were just kind of walking in the other direction. But he kept coming our way, and eventually started moving faster than us, and pretty soon he was getting pretty close. And Ellie and I were thinking, what do we do? Well, I remembered there was over the hill there was a pasture, and then there was a road. And the pasture was, kind of big. And so Ellie and I were thinking, wow, we better run and get out of his sight, because he was coming too close. So we kind of ran around this hill and lost sight of him. We thought, okay, he's probably forgotten about us by now. And then we went over the hill, and we started making our way across the pasture, and all of a sudden we heard, and we looked, and he was there again. Right around the hill, he had tracked us down. And so he was kind of making his way across the pasture toward us again. So we just opened up running like crazy, because we thought we're just going to have to make it to the fence and get over before he catches us. So we started running, and pretty soon it was getting all squishy, and I said to Ellie, hey, this is good for us, because he won't be able to keep up with us here, because he'll get all bogged down in this. And Ellie said, do you think this is a bog? And I said, yeah, it probably is.
They find bodies from 5,000 years ago in bogs,
She said, don't people die in bogs? I said, well, I'm not sure if they die in bogs or they were thrown into bogs after they were killed. So we suddenly stopped, both of us, and the ground kind of went like Jell-O. And we thought, oh no. So we looked back, and the bull had not continued coming across.
Wanda said you guys were doing your own version of running of the bulls.
I think the bull realized, I think the bull knew it was a bog, because he didn't come into it at that point.
No red. They weren't wearing red.
But we made our way kind of to the sideways until we got to a little more firm ground, and then we kind of went all the way over, and then we scaled the barbed wire fence to get out away from him. But it was funny because the next day, the kids and I were on a boat cruise. We rented a little boat with an outboard motor, and we're going around the loch. And we came over to the pier, because we were going to see if Tara, she hadn't been feeling good, but we were going to see if she felt better, if she wanted to come down to the pier and get on the boat with us. But we got there, and the bull was standing there looking at us, and there were a couple of other cows and bulls, and he started kind of just like scraping the ground and making noise, and we were thinking, okay, this guy's really upset. So the next day, Ellie and I went to town. We drove down the driveway from the farm, and the pasture right across the way is where they were, and he was right behind the barbed wire fence. Ellie said, he's got it out for us.
He's got it out for you. So they almost got killed by a bull.
So that was...
Yeah, that was
it's hilarious
pretty...
telling the story.
Yeah.
It was a little...
Wait, did you say we were on the boat? When they
Yeah,
went around
yeah.
to the dock and they were still there?
Yeah.
Like,
Well, the thing is, the lady said if we just gave them, a lot of space. Well, we didn't know there was a bull there because we didn't see him at all.
She didn't say anything about the bull.
And that particular day, there were no cows anywhere
Yeah.
in sight.
Yeah.
But we did realize later, further around the hill that we went over the top of, there apparently were some cows.
Yeah.
So
So the
She
theme
said-
of our trip...
he came after you?
Yeah. So the theme of our trip was mistakes were made. We said that about 500 times a day. And so mistakes were made. Another mistake that we made was we should have only planned 1 or 2 places and stayed there only for 3 or 4 weeks instead of trying to do 4, 5 countries in 7 weeks. The traveling with our suitcases, even though the day before we left, we didn't tell anybody this, but the day before we left, we thought we could take a check-on bag and a carry-on bag. We found out the day before we left we could only take a carry-on bag or be charged $60 a bag for check. So the day before I left, I was frantically trying to pare down everything I could so we could just get it into a carry-on bag. And even with that and our personal item, which was everybody's computer bags, it was still a lot of stuff to be lugging around. And so then what we did was we bought a suitcase over there for $20 and paid the $60 for it to get home for all of our souvenirs. That went in my purse so that it wouldn't get smushed.
Yeah, she was protecting it all the way.
I can actually say I bought something at Harrods. I was going to buy an apron, but then we got there. But when we got to Harrods the second time, I went back and looked at the aprons, and I'm like, well, these really aren't that cute. So I didn't even buy an apron. But then at the airport, they had a Harrod at the airport, and they had this. And I'm like, okay, I got to get me something from Harrods, which has to do with our changes that are coming up, for those of you who don't know. So
some of the things that we brought, like the multiple computers we would not have brought, except we were planning to do more video.
yeah.
And it turned out to be a blessing in disguise in the sense that ahead of time we were thinking if we stay a week in each place, it would be easier for Tara and for us all to just kind of relax. But in the end, it wasn't easier for Tara, but the boys were a lot more bored.
Yeah.
So it turned out to be a positive thing in that in between going and doing things, they were able to kind of have a little bit of computer time.
Well, and then the week after we got there, David got hired for a job where he had to have his computer. So it was really good that we took his computer because he spent the majority of his time on his new job, which we can't talk about until September 1st. But when September 1st comes, I will talk about it. But what?
you're not supposed to say it on the live show because people... never mind.
Well, I'm not saying anything. So anyway, so Dave was working the whole time we were there. David actually got to meet 2 of his friends that he's known online for quite a while. And he got to go in London twice with his friend Oliver. And then Nottingham with his other friend. And so that was really good for him. He got to meet those two guys. Jack, he was really missing home. He was bored. He was like, whatever. He really could have cared less if he went or not.
But he did like things like the boating. We went to the London Eye when Shayla was there, and he requested to go back to the London Eye later. So there were some things he liked, and in the end he said he liked it more than he didn't like it, but I think he was kind of more homesick and less enthusiastic. Especially a lot of the places we were doing things that were more fun for the adults probably. But yeah.
Then the other thing that was really hard where mistakes were made was they do not have dryers in the UK. We had like 10 Airbnbs for the whole trip and only one had a dryer. Now, you might say, oh, you're spoiled American, but here's the problem. I have lived without a dryer for years. I'm okay with that. The problem comes in when you're traveling without a dryer and you only have 4 days worth of clothes and you have to wash. So here was the problem. We would have to time it so that I washed and then I hung it. But like Mike's jeans and David's jeans would take like 3 days to dry sometimes because it was rainy and humid. Like in Scotland, it was 3 days for drying stuff. And a couple of places like in Scotland, before I knew there was a washer and dryer, which it wasn't on the listing, so we assumed it wasn't there. And then after I had hand washed all of our clothes in the sink, then she says, oh, well, I have a washer. Like,
well, the listing actually said there wasn't one, but I think that must have been an old listing.
Yeah, so and then like the hotel, we finally, the last 4 days when we went back to London before we came home, we just lost the money on our reservation for the Airbnb, and Mike ever so graciously spent the money on a hotel.
I didn't tell her because I knew she wouldn't want to spend the money.
But he spent the money on a hotel. But for the laundry, I was going to go wash our clothes at the hotel laundry room.
It said laundry is included, and that didn't occur to me that meant like...
That meant you send it off and pay
cleaning.
$5 to have a pair of underwear clean.
I was thinking,
like, that ain't going to happen.
For some reason in my brain, because it was a big
Yeah,
conference center, I thought, oh, there's a laundrette somewhere, and I totally forgot. And when I saw the little thing with the prices, I thought, duh.
Yeah, so there, I was having to wash the clothes in the sink. I threw them in the shower, turned the shower on and let it run to start washing the soap out of the ones while I finished washing the other ones in the sink. Then I had to wring them out, and there was only 8 hangers in each of our rooms. We got 2 rooms. There was only 8 hangers, so then I had to hang them up, put towels down to dry.
So Wanda wants to know if this cured you of wanting to live off the grid.
No, actually, here's the thing about living off grid. I think I would be fine living off grid if I was staying in one place. I think I would actually love living off grid. Because when I'm staying in one place, I'm okay with it. But when you're having
we
to...
had such a short time, we didn't want to have to pack wet clothes into our luggage.
Yeah, so I wasn't really wanting to pack wet clothes in our luggage and then have it maybe accidentally mold or whatever. Then the other problem was some of the washers, like the first washer we used, molded our clothes. Well, so then the second washer we used, trying to get the mold out, I put it on the high setting. Well, then it shredded our clothes. And so poor Mike, he had all these little rips in his shirts.
I didn't really notice.
That he had to go wearing around all the time. And so we threw away half our clothes because they got ruined in the washer. So then we had even less clothes. Dave had extra pair of jeans and they got shredded. Ooh. So that was crazy. So laundry and food, we lived on chicken nuggets and pizza.
Yeah, we expected to make more things, but we weren't really in each place quite long enough. And we did actually, we found a Lidl, and in Ireland especially, there was Lidl nearby, there was Aldi, and the boys mostly had chicken nuggets and pizza there, but the rest of us had other things because those places were better.
Yeah.
Those places were better for us being able to get that. Scotland, there was no store anywhere nearby, so we just had to kind of take what we could. And we were aware of that ahead of time. But it was...
So, and then Buster wasn't doing very good at home. He really missed us a lot, so poor BJ was having to deal with that. He was starting to tear up stuff and all that. So yeah, I was blow drying our clothes. Most of the places didn't have irons, so I couldn't iron them, but I was blow drying them, and yeah, so that was a mess. Now, what was our favorite place? I would say Norway. I love Norway. Dave put a picture up. Turid and her son, Ivan, were the best. They showed us all over the place. Sweetest people.
You want me to just show a picture of the street?
You could show, and then show. We got
first one is buildings. The second one is Turid.
Here's the one with all the buildings. It was the buildings on the shore.
Actually, they even made a Christmas dinner for us.
They made a traditional Norwegian Christmas dinner for us.
It was really nice.
And so Norway was a blast. I loved Norway. I loved all the colors. The mustard yellows, the dark forest greens, and the maroons.
Dave just put the picture up with Turid.
I just loved all of the colors and everything. So I think I must be... Turn it around, Dave, and show our living room. I think I must be Norwegian, and I don't know it. You can't turn the camera around?
No, hang on.
This is why I love Norway. So see my living room? I didn't even know I was Norwegian.
Ricky's asking if I order your cookbook this week, do you think it would be mid to late September before I get it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you order it this week, it'll probably be the middle of September. Yeah.
And then Ellie was joking around about Jack being Norwegian. And...
Jack, so one time, Ellie, as we were going into Norway... figuring out our $60,000 Volvo, or how much was it? 60? Is that what we thought it was?
Yeah, so they gave us a Volvo, and they're like, "Oh yeah, this is a status car," and I was thinking, okay.
We were the first people to drive it.
I was just thinking to myself, it doesn't really mean that much to me as a status car, but I'm a little terrified to be driving a brand new.
Yeah, we were terrified to drive a brand new car.
I mean, it was nice, but I was just thinking, I don't really want to. With our cars, if somebody bangs it with the door or something, it's not such a big deal, but I was thinking, I'm responsible for this car.
Yeah.
It was a really nice car, I have to say. It was very nice.
Yeah.
I wouldn't buy it, but it was, the backup cameras on the cars were really nice.
Yeah.
I really liked it.
So, if something was funny, when we were getting in the car from the airport heading out to our Airbnb for our first day there, Ellie and Jack, I don't know how they got on the subject, but they got to talking about how Jack kind of looks a little Norwegian. And Ellie said, "Well, yeah, Jack, don't you know you're adopted?" And Jack said, "Oh, whatever." She said, "No, really." She said, "That's what this whole trip is for, is we're bringing you back." And he was just kind of like, he's like, "No." And she said, "Yes, that's why we planned this whole trip, because we're returning you."
And we were playing along.
So then everybody started playing along, and poor Jack. He had post-traumatic big sister syndrome. So...
I'm trying to think of... Actually, it's funny because some things like Scotland was... 3 days were really rainy, and we had been doing a lot of video, and we had just come back from North Yorkshire, and so everybody was really worn out. But it still had some fun things. But Ireland, it was great, but the first 2 days in each place we were having to readjust to being able to. We were having to readjust, and so the first 2 days were kind of hard, and then they get a lot better after that. One of the big things that Tara didn't mention is, I think it was maybe a mistake taking almost the whole family when there are so many different ages and preferences, because Jack was having trouble because a lot of what we did was more appealing to older people. Dave kind of got more interested in sort of the work that he wanted to do. Tara wasn't feeling very well and kind of wanted to just have a restful sitting kind of thing. Ellie and I were kind of thinking, hey, let's go see stuff. And so it was a little bit difficult having everybody together in that way. That made it difficult. And I think in the future, I think Tara probably won't do a trip like that again. In the future, probably, I might go with one or two of the kids.
And we have determined that separate vacations are our friends.
We're going to take vacations.
Yeah, we realize that's probably all right.
I'm going to take my vacation and Mike's going to take his.
Well, we noticed that Tara has liked, more recently, she's liked, going to the mountains and sitting in a hot spring somewhere or something like that. But, Ellie and I kind of liked, running around in Paris.
Yeah.
And so being able to kind of change it up, it's not like we would go overseas all the time. But the Paris thing was really cool because, thank you, Darren, if you're on, for mentioning it. But when we first were in London, Darren said, because we said, well, we're going to be in London a lot of days. We're not really sure what we're going to do with all those days. And he said, you should take the Eurostar train and go to Paris. Well, the Eurostar goes, it's the train that goes under the English Channel, but it takes like 2 hours to get there from London to Paris, which is amazingly fast. And so we looked, at the time after Tara and I had kind of looked at flights because we were both a little frustrated back here, I said, maybe we should try to figure out how we can spin this to make it work well for us. And so somehow I happened to mention the Paris thing to Ellie, and Tara said, you two just go. So that ended up, we looked it up, and it wasn't very expensive because we were starting in London, which was right there. But that was kind of the trial for figuring out if we stayed in a hotel, how is that going to be better than the Airbnbs? And because it really was, that's why I canceled the last Airbnb in London and we stayed at a hotel, and that ended up being great.
Yeah.
It's funny because that hotel was near the airport, but even so, it still wasn't really loud because they had built it to be a sleeping place near the airport.
Yeah. Yeah, so we decided separate trips. Mike will get his $2,000, I'll get my $2,000, and we'll just go our separate ways, and that'll be the best way to do it, I think. Did we talk about moving while we were there? So we're going to talk about actually the emotional aspect here for the last couple of minutes of the trip. We really had an eye-opening experience while we were over there. And it was
a lot different than we expected.
It was very interesting. Mike and I have both been to Europe before. I've been twice. I went to Germany, Austria, Holland, Sweden. I went all over. So I'm not new to European travel by any stretch of the imagination. But
she's new to having CFS.
We had it's kind of strange. So we came home and I was telling one of our friends at church yesterday, I said, we know something really big has changed in our lives, but we can't quite figure out what it is. And we know we have these changes coming with the business pretty soon, but it seems like it's more than that. And we realized that I'm not doing very good at this, but it was really an emotional trip for us, an eye-opening, and seeing just different things and how our lives are different. So like somebody said, did you talk about moving while you're here? While you were over there? Yeah, I still want to move to another house, but we're going to stay in this house until we come up with the cash, because being completely debt-free,
it's really changed things.
It was
in a way
beautiful.
That we hadn't realized.
We were completely debt-free. All our bills were paid while we were gone.
We paid ahead of time.
2 months.
For the whole trip, so we didn't have to think about that.
We took off 2 full months because we were gone 7.5 weeks, and we took off all of last week almost. Mike did a little bit on Friday.
I say let's go to Norway.
You say let's go to Norway.
That was my favorite place.
We realized that there are going to be a lot of things changing. We're not going to be doing as much for the business. We are cutting out a lot of things on the business. I'm going to be switching a few things up, because we were like, you know what, we're just stressing out way too much over this. And we were really pushing the business hard to try and get the house paid off. And now that we have, we're like, well, good grief. Now we just need to save for retirement. We don't need that much money. We can probably save up in, 3 to 5 years and have it all paid for.
Well, we sort of had a light bulb that's kind of what we want to share with everyone. That's how we want to bond with everyone on the channel, is to kind of share that sort of freedom.
Yeah,
which
so
we kind of talked about over the years.
Yeah.
but this has been different.
Yeah. So anyway, it was really emotionally interesting because yesterday we were really feeling discombobulated because it was like, okay, we know we're home,
but it doesn't
feel like home.
Actually, it's funny. Someone told me.
We're having bad.
One of my friends suggested this might be related to the thing where people say, yeah, it takes 3 weeks to develop a new habit or something. But it was funny because after being gone for so long, we came back and we were thinking, wow, it's familiar, but it's strange.
Yeah.
And it was strange coming back because after driving 4 weeks on the left, even in Norway, it was more difficult because they're on the right, and adjusting to Norway after 4 weeks on the left, I kept wanting to go left. Back in the States, there was still a little of that, or things like, it was weird to think of how strange it was to look at American change again.
Yeah. And one of the changes that we're making is I am no longer doing the soap. My last soap video went up last week on my soap channel, but you know what? I'm okay with it.
She's still going to do it as a hobby.
I love soap, but it was not a good business for me. It was too stressful. I'm going to make it as a hobby for myself and give it away, but I'm done with the soap. I do have another YouTube channel planned because I just can't stop with the ideas.
But it should be more relaxing.
It's going to be like 1,000 times less work. I'm hiring people to do things for it so that I don't have to do it all myself. And so I have that, so I'll have something to do, but not as stressful.
We're still doing live shows, Tracy, so that's cool.
Yeah, so we're gonna announce it when we make the changes. We're not gonna say anything more. We're gonna wait for the big announcement when we make it. Yeah.
Judy reminds me of an important mistakes were made thing. Did you use American cash or plastic or traveler's checks? So I don't think traveler's checks are almost not usable anymore.
Yeah.
We used a credit card a lot.
And our business card was stolen while we were gone.
While we were gone, our business card got compromised.
They won't talk to you when you're out of the country.
We had a hard time with it because we were out of the States, and so they weren't sure that we were us.
All of our business stuff is on auto pay to keep the business going.
So we were thinking, that's going to be a train wreck. But we used a credit card. Thankfully, our personal card, the one we were using for virtually everything, didn't get compromised. That's good. We did have cash in a lot of the places, particularly more in Britain and Ireland and Paris. We used a lot of cash. And so that's where I kind of got to finally learning the other coins that were different. But the thing I thought was important to mention, if any of you decide to go overseas, is we did this when Ellie and I went, but we got the cash here. We went to the bank and we paid them American money and got the cash for the countries we were going to. When we got to England, we realized that was a mistake because they've changed the money recently.
We couldn't spend any of it.
So there was a lot of it that the U.S. banks were holding to convert and give to Americans going overseas, but the U.S. banks were unaware that it's been changed in England, and so it's not legal tender anymore.
So we had hundreds of dollars in money that we couldn't spend.
So it turned out, if you live there, you can take it to the bank and trade it in for a more modern. So like they have paper bills, but there's plastic versions of the bills, and you're not allowed to use the paper ones anymore, or at least for certain ones. And so they said, just go to a bank and trade it in for the other one. Well, the banks wouldn't do it because we didn't have an account there.
Yeah.
And so there were a lot of money issues with that. Thankfully, our friend Crystal helped us to kind of get that converted, which is really nice. And Crystal was amazing. Did we talk about Crystal right now? She was great.
She was.
It was so
wonderful.
much fun having her there, and she really kind of.
And we got to meet several viewers while we were there. We actually lived with Crystal, she was just. We love you, Crystal. We just. If I come back over, I'm going to Crystal. I'm going to stay in Maxim. But we got to meet Kim, and we got to meet Diana. Is that how you said her name?
Oh, Dion, yeah.
Dion.
In Ireland.
And then Miriam.
Yes.
And Mike got spotted 3 times from viewers. He's never spotted here in the U.S. He got spotted 3 times.
And she wasn't with me any of those times.
Yeah, he got spotted 3 times from viewers, which is hilarious.
We were in the Rock of Cashel.
Yeah, we were at a castle, but one of us.
It's a castle kind of in it's a popular castle with tourists, but it was the most unlikely place to bump into somebody. And I was taking a picture of Ellie, and she looked at me, and she kind of looked surprised, and I thought, I wonder if I know her from somewhere.
Yep, you did. Funny. Yeah, so if you're going over to Europe, in England specifically, make sure you have plastic English pounds and not paper English pounds, because you will not be able to spend the 50 English pounds, and get small bills, not big bills. The small bills everywhere was hard to change. Oh my goodness, that was hard doing the small bills.
I probably would think about doing the conversion over there.
Yeah.
And also we knew to get phone SIM cards over there, so we could use the phones. The thing is that because we were planning to do live stuff, I was looking for one that was specifically I knew was going to work for streaming. So we didn't get it till the second day, which was a mistake.
Yeah.
But when we got Vodafone, which was amazing. We got Vodafone in the UK, and it worked. It worked when we crossed over into Ireland. It worked in Norway. It worked in France.
Yeah.
It worked everywhere, and it was. We had a lot of coverage for not very much money, so that was great.
Yeah, so that was good.
Yeah.
So our trip was a love-hate relationship. I'm glad we went. It gave me perspective, getting away from the business. And it really clarified a lot of things on the business, completely
really
getting
helpful.
away. It's extremely helpful with that. And so I'm glad that we
Kim's on.
did. Oh, Kim!
We saw Kim too while we were there.
Yes! We look younger in person. Oh dear.
Wow.
I need to change my makeup. Oh dear. How do I make myself
why?
look
because
younger?
we don't have the best HD camera.
Oh, that's probably true. We need to spend $5,000.
It was good meeting you, Kim.
Yes, Kim was really nice. We got to meet her in London.
Joe the Rock of Cashel was awesome. It was really nice.
Yeah. So anyway, we are not moving there. And really, somebody said, oh, I thought you would appreciate the USA. I really didn't feel that way. I didn't feel like, oh, the US has this better. The US does that. A lot of Americans say that. I didn't really feel like that, because I just feel like it's just different. Just because it's not in the USA doesn't mean that it's okay. They just do things differently. But it doesn't mean that it's better. Now, I did appreciate driving in the USA more, because you have roads that cars can actually fit on.
In Ireland.
Poor Tara was having a major ordeal with me driving on the left.
It got to the point where I was starting to have...
In some of the smaller roads in Ireland. And
I was starting to have panic attacks.
Mistakes were made. Here's another important thing. Yeah. In Ireland, there are all the different sizes of roads. And the smallest roads are labeled with L's, I think, and those oftentimes are one lane for traffic going both directions, with a hedge on one side and a stone wall on the other side. And if you understand that, you can just kind of avoid those if you're afraid. Mm-hmm. But we were using Google to help us get around, and Google would say, hey, I found a route that's 7 minutes faster. Do you want to do that? And they would turn us down one of those roads. Well, it's not 7 minutes faster because we aren't familiar with those roads. So the mistake that we made there was not sticking to the little bit bigger roads when we could. There are some places where we couldn't because of where we were, but it was a little less, at the farm, to get to the farm, we had to go on the small road, but that wasn't so bad because it was not as heavily trafficked. But that was the thing I realized is don't necessarily let Google tell you something is faster.
Yeah, I was starting to have, I was really having to do my calming exercises when we were getting in the car, because I was getting to the point where...
It was pretty dicey.
I really was not... I was really sick. I was really, really sick. And when you're sick, your mind just doesn't work very well. And even though I knew that our lives were in danger... It seemed like we were going to die at every turn. So anyway.
One thing I would say about the U.S. Sorry, I wanted to write a question down before I forgot. I had the appreciation that the U.S. is home, and kind of missed it at times, but the not feeling like it's better than other places in the world. It's just different, but it's home. And I think home is home because of where you're from. What I really appreciated about not being in the U.S. is I didn't follow any news at all. I barely looked at Facebook. And I have to tell you, I tell everybody, don't listen to the news, don't read the news. And I realized even more than I thought, everything is blown completely out of proportion. Like, I kept hearing Paris has just gotten to be overrun, with violence and terrorism and stuff. And Ellie and I went to Paris, and I'm sure that there's some things that happen. But the thing is, when you actually go there in real life, you realize, it's kind of oversold in the media. And the thing is, I'm not saying that just for Americans going overseas. I talk to a lot of people in Europe, and they have the same thinking here.
They think that everybody goes around shooting each other over here.
They think that if you disagree with your neighbor, you just shoot them. Because you're a cowboy in America. And I'm not saying everybody thinks that, but I'm saying that
that's the impression that a lot of
it's
people
really
have.
helpful getting into a country where you don't understand what they're doing in their politics and you don't really care. Because then you start to realize life is so much bigger than that. And those things are just taking your brain power away from you. And so that was really brilliant. That was really great.
London had a lot in common compared to what I thought.
Well, yeah, London had
people conduct themselves,
It did, although it's funny because one guy asked if we had something, and he said, "Oh, do you want me to bin it?" And I was thinking, bin it. I realized, wait, I know a bin is a rubbish bin, and then I realized, oh, he wants to know if we want to throw it away.
Yeah, a couple of things we noticed. Everyone dresses up over there. It was so beautiful. Going to the grocery store, and no one was in their pajamas, and there were no dogs in the grocery store. That I loved was so much better than the U.S. The second thing, their houses all have huge windows.
Oh, yeah.
Every room has a huge, and I mean huge window, like what we would consider a bay window. It was brilliant. You get that, Crystal, Darren, Kim? It was brilliant. So everyone has these huge, I wish U.S. houses had
more light,
more functional houses. Their houses, despite the fact that the Airbnbs weren't very clean, that kind of thing, a lot of things were very functional in their house, and I love that, especially in the kitchen and stuff like that, because it's so small. They actually go for functionality over this crazy building style that we have here. So that I love. So I loved that. Their food, a lot of the food, with the exception of Norway, you may complain about food prices, but I know firsthand now, I actually have video footage of it. The food in Britain, Ireland, Scotland, all of it was as cheap, if not cheaper, over there than it is here in the U.S. A lot of it was cheaper.
Oh man, Norway was really expensive.
Norway was ridiculously expensive.
But we got to give Turid credit for being creative.
But Turid, it's very funny. This just shows you, I get so tired of people complaining about grocery prices. So Turid and her family get in the car, drive 5 or 6 hours to the border of Sweden. I don't know if they rent a hotel room or what. I think they rent a hotel room. And and then they go over to Sweden and they buy their groceries. And then they bring it back to Norway. Guys, people, it really makes me, I'm going to get into this more, but it makes me so mad when people say, well, I can't find X grocery prices, or I can't get anything on sale. Get in the car and drive until you can find it and stock up. And so that I thought was brilliant. It was like 3 days they spend shopping in Sweden, and then they bring it all back. Totally a great idea, I think.
Darren,
but yeah.
Darren, while you're on, I have to tell you, thank you so much. You just said it off the cuff when we were in London with you at the beginning about you should get on the Eurostar and go to Paris. Ellie and I took you up on that, and we did, and we had a brilliant time. It was amazing. So thank you. We have to credit you for giving us that idea.
Yep. So that was kind of the long and short of it on our trip. I would love to go see Amy T in Australia. If I go, I might go by myself. Our flight home was 23 hours. We were traveling that day home, so we were pretty pooped.
What was the thing about? Something about an unusual...
We got diverted because there was a big storm from Wyoming down to New Mexico. And it was funny, as I was sitting next to this guy, and hello, Jonathan, if you watch. And he was talking and asking me stuff, and he said, oh, look down there. And I looked. I said, well, that looks like Oklahoma. He's like, well, no, that can't be Oklahoma. It's a straight shot from Charlotte to Denver. And I'm like, well, that really looks like Oklahoma, because I knew Kansas does not have red soil. And I'm like, well, that doesn't look. I said, well, maybe I was mistaken. Whatever. I'm tired. So not even 30 seconds later, the pilot gets on and says, oh, we're sorry, but we have to divert the plane to Albuquerque because there's a storm we can't fly over, and then we're going to go up the mountains and hopefully clip the edge of another storm and get in. Oh, thanks. That makes me feel real good.
So from North Carolina to New Mexico to get to northern Colorado.
So that was a little excitement. And then before we got on the plane, right as we got on the plane, of course we got the cheap tickets, so we were the last people on the plane. And I went to go get my phone out of my bag to give it to Jack to play with his game on the phone on the plane. Ooh. And I was like, Mike, I don't have my phone. He's like, what? I said, my phone is not here. I said, Mike, I don't have my phone.
He said, it's probably in your other bag.
He said, it's in your... I said, Mike, my phone is not here. So he's calling it. Ellie's calling it. Nobody can hear my phone ringing. I said, Mike, I don't have my phone. Run up and see if we left it. I said, I think Jack left it in the terminal when he picked up his bags to come.
Across 100 people coming into the airplane.
So tell him what happened.
Direction. I was going the wrong direction, and I finally get up there, and I said, can I run out? My wife left her phone right there. They said, you can't. We're leaving right now. And I was thinking, it's like literally right there. Could I get it? And they said, no, you can go, and then but you may not be able to get back on. And I was like, oh no. So I went back to Tara, or no, I think before I went back to Tara, they said, you have to take everything. You have to get your whole family and all your stuff and get off the plane if you're going to do that. And I was like, well, can I just get my stuff? And they've got their stuff, and because we had a fairly small amount of stuff compared to a lot of people. And they said, well, yeah. So I went back to Tara and they said I can go off if I bring my stuff. So I'm just going to get the smallest backpack we have.
So we're trying to fungal out of the closed carry-on thing, cabin thing.
And everybody wasn't sitting down yet, so it's not like I was holding the plane necessarily. But I went back up there, and then he's like, yeah, you can go, but you're not going to be able to get back on. I was like, oh, really? But it's like right there, literally, like 30 seconds, or a minute maybe at the most. And she's like, oh, no. And finally I was thinking, I said, I just don't know if it's worth not getting the plane. And so then somebody came back and said, the pilot said, let him go get it. So I was thinking, thank you. So so they let me out. They had to open the door. They had just closed it. And then I ran down the gangplank, and the guy opened the other end, and it was right there. Like, it was probably 20 seconds from when I got off the plane to when I had the phone in my hand. And I came back, and the guy's like, you can't get on. Nope, you can't go. And I said, well, the pilot just said I could get off and get back on. So he called, and the pilot said, yeah, let him on. So I went back down there, and I ended up I kind of called over to the pilot as I was getting on. I said, thanks a lot. I really appreciate that. And so it turned out that it didn't really delay anything because people were still sitting down.
We sat on the tarmac for 45 minutes.
After that, there was just a really long line to take off because of weather. So it didn't really delay anything anyway. But it was very awesome for them to let me get that. And
for him to let you get that, not the other.
Well, I think they were kind of feeling our pain. But the thing is that the one lady said, well, where is it? And we'll go look for it. Well, I don't know that they really looked for it because I said it's right.
It was
you
obvious.
just walk out the door and it's right there on the left. There's a seat there. And so I was thinking, I just know I have in my mind a picture of where it is. And so I was glad to be able to get it for Tara. It wasn't so much about the phone. It's just that we have a lot of things on the phone related to being able to do the business and stuff that if we lose it, it would be a lot of reconstructing things.
Have to go in and change passwords for everything and all
that. So it was really great that we were able to get it. And after that, I kind of was like, oh, you owe me one now.
Yeah.
But then we were thinking, I don't know if we want to let Jack use the phone.
Yeah. So Turid says they drive 12 hours to Sweden. I totally misunderstood. I'm sorry, Turid. She said that they drive 12 hours each way to Sweden to go grocery shopping. So guys,
well, and
that's actually one thing that we're going to talk about when we make our changes. But you guys think I was hard?
Well, and here's the reason.
Holy cow. Tara's really not going to put up with much.
But Turid mentions this, and this is one thing that we would not necessarily have believed if we hadn't seen it in person. But the prices in Norway are extremely high on certain things. Most things, to be honest.
So let's see.
But Turid says, I can buy a steak in Sweden for 65 kroner per kilo. Or in Norway, the same steak is 499.
So how much was 500 kroners again in Norway?
So 500 kroners was $50.
So it's $50 for 2 pounds of steak. $55 for 2 pounds. So that is over $25, like $26 a pound for steak in Norway. But in Sweden, it is
$6.50 for 2 pounds.
$3.50 a pound for steak.
So we were just thinking it's pretty amazing.
Crazy.
Because that's the thing that a lot of people don't realize is she drives 12 hours to do this, but only once or twice a year.
Yeah.
And if you can get in your mind, we're saving a ton of money. So maybe if we go out of our way this little bit. That's what we did in Idaho. Yeah. When we lived 70 miles from the store, we would go once a month. Mm-hmm. And it was worth it. It wouldn't have been worth it to drive that far every day. But we planned ahead and did it once a month. So
yeah.
Hi, Kara.
Did you get to see everything you wanted to? Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think we had everything on our list that we had planned to see. Shayla, somebody asked earlier, how did Shayla do? Shayla loved it. She absolutely loved it. Was so glad. She was so much fun. Glad she was able to come. Wish she could have been able to spend the whole trip with us.
She and I were in London on the 4th of July. That was pretty funny. I wish that we had done more in Scotland. We had the time in Scotland, but for some reason, it didn't occur to me that it would be more difficult to get away from where we were, or that we would be so worn out at that point.
Yeah.
So we didn't go very many places. It was nice where we were. It was amazing where we were. But there were other things I thought we would see in Scotland. So this would be my second time in Scotland where we kind of were scaling back things in the moment we were there.
Yeah.
So I think someday I'll have to see.
Did not see one bagpipe. I think we saw one guy in a kilt. Didn't ask him what was underneath.
I love their accents in Scotland, especially in Inverary. That's the town that was closest to us. It's an amazing, cute little town.
Yeah.
And the people, it was just so fun listening to them talk.
Yeah. That was a cute little town. I would probably go there and stay. That's one of those things where I would have stayed, if we would have stayed 3 or 4 weeks at just one place, I think we would have done better. So, not that I'm traveling ever again, but when Mike and the kids go, they can stay for 3 or 4 weeks. I do wish, I absolutely loved the scenery, like in England and Ireland. I wish we had places like that in the United States that don't tell me. I have been to most of the United States, so.
And there's a lot of pretty in the United States.
There's a lot of pretty in the United States.
Kind of
I get it, but it's not the pretty without the heat and humidity. And
that was nice.
That was glorious. The entire summer with no heat and no humidity was beautiful. We had one hot day. That was it.
I mean,
it was beautiful.
Kind of humid?
Yeah, but it
London
wasn't
was
bad.
humid, but the very hottest day we were in London was 80.
So the
80
weather,
Fahrenheit.
Loved it. I wish we had a place here in the United States that was like that. I would move there in a second. So if you guys know of a place like that doesn't have mosquitoes, they don't have bugs, they don't have screens on their windows because they don't have bugs.
That was strange seeing no screens on the windows.
Yeah, they don't have screens.
I would say a typical day for us over there was about 60 degrees Fahrenheit.
It was beautiful.
A little bit cooler in some places, slightly hotter. We missed the 100-degree day in London by one day.
Yeah.
And we were glad to have missed that part of the heat because the underground, it gets really hot. But in Ireland, the week before that, Jack and I were in the sea, and it was like 60 degrees in the water.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. You did not buy a kilt. You were going to buy a kilt.
I was going to buy a kilt. I wanted to get it in Scotland, though, and I still didn't see as much of Scotland as I would have liked. So that'll have to be a future trip. One thing, though, even though a number of people ask me about going, and I've said I want to travel again, I am kind of traveled out for now in terms of that far distance traveling. And I think in the next year or so, it'd
Yeah.
be great to do some traveling in Colorado.
Yeah, no, they don't spray for bugs. They don't spray for bugs. They just don't have bugs like we have here.
It
It
too
was
cold.
beautiful.
It's not as
Yeah.
hot. It's
Except
not as-
midges, but still midges. I would put up with
Yes.
midges. I would put up with midges to not have everything else.
Well, the thing about the midges that the people told us in Scotland, which appears to be true, is they're only come out in super biting numbers at a certain
Yeah.
time of the day, and they just stay inside. Or if you're around certain types of plants, you're more likely
Yeah.
to. So it could be managed.
Yeah.
Well, also somebody told us that the midges, if you have your windows open, they don't come in unless
You have a light on.
I think you
Yeah,
have a light
yeah,
on
yeah.
or something like that. So.
All right, guys, our books were supposed to come today and they did not. So who
We're
knows?
hoping to get them soon, but we
If
are.
you order September 1st, they should be here by then. So they are back ordered until September 1st, but you can still order. Dining on a Dime cookbook, our wonderful peach crisp right there. Look at that yummy goodness
That's
from
gonna be
Great Grandma's. Great Grandma's peach crisp.
Yum.
Please like, subscribe, and share. Visit us at livingonadime.com, and we will be back Wednesday at the same time. And we will see you guys next time.
Bye.
Oh, we're stopping. Oh.
Oh, how's Buster now that you're home? He's much better.
Yep, he's doing
He was
good.
very happy.
Yeah.
You ready?
Yep.
Bye.
Bye. Yeah, Buster, we miss you.